at Mark Wahlberg's box office performance, specifically his last 5 movies leading up to his brand new one that was just released, Flight Risk. So yeah, we got some data on that, and I have a feeling this is going to be pretty fascinating.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg's career is really a fascinating study in and of itself. You have someone who started as a rapper, Marky Mark, and then transitioned so successfully into an actor.
Yeah.
And he's known for these big blockbuster hits, but also some really powerful, dramatic performances. So he's really kind of navigated the waters of Hollywood exceptionally well.
Yeah, and speaking of navigating those waters, he's definitely left his mark on the box office. We're talking about a total career gross of over $5.4 billion, according to the numbers. That's a pretty big impact on the film industry.
Absolutely. But, I think what's really interesting to me is the variance we see in his last few films. You have everything from smaller independent projects like Joe Bell, which grossed $1.73 million, all the way to the mega hit Uncharted, which raked in a staggering $407.14 million globally. So I think this range really begs the question, what are the key factors that are driving these drastically different outcomes?
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't think that a movie starring Mark Wahlberg would only bring in $1.73 million. So let's start with those films on the lower end of the spectrum. We have Joe Bell, and then Father Stew, which brought in $21.79 million, and Arthur the King with $40.85 million. So those are all pretty far apart from the success of Uncharted.
Yeah, it is quite a spectrum, isn't it? And, it's not always about the star power of the lead actor. I think genre, for example, plays a huge role. Joe Bell was a smaller independent drama, and these types of films often struggle to attract a wider audience.
Yeah.
Especially compared to, big budget action spectacles.
Right, so even with a big name like Mark Wahlberg attached, the genre itself might have limited its reach. What about Father Stew? That was based on a true story and seemed to have a lot of heart.
Father Stew's an interesting one. While it was based on a compelling true story, its religious themes likely appeal to a more niche audience. This isn't to say that faith-based films can't find broader success, but they often rely on strong word of mouth and community support to kind of grow their viewership over time.
Okay, so genre and target audience are definitely seem to be playing a role here. What about Arthur the King? That had that adventure element, which you'd think would draw a pretty decent crowd.
Yeah, adventure films can be tricky. Arthur the King might have faced stiff competition from other bigger budget releases at the time. Timing is everything in Hollywood, and sometimes even a great film can get lost in a crowded release calendar.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then we have Instant Family, a heartwarming comedy that did surprisingly well, $120.98 million at the box office. What do you think were some of the key factors in its success?
Instant Family seems to have hit that sweet spot of broad appeal. Comedies, when done well, can attract really diverse audiences. And this one, with its themes of family and adoption, likely resonated with viewers on an emotional level, leading to strong word of mouth.
And speaking of broad appeal, let's talk about the behemoth in the room, Uncharted. A whopping $407.14 million. What do you attribute that success to? I mean, was it purely Mark Wahlberg's star power?
Well, while Wahlberg's presence certainly didn't hurt, Uncharted benefited greatly from being a known entity. It's based on a wildly popular video game franchise, so it already had this built-in global fan base. They were really eager to see this world come to life on the big screen, and that kind of pre-existing awareness is invaluable in Hollywood.
Yeah, so we're seeing a trend here. Genre, target audience, pre-existing fan base, they all contribute to a film's box office success. Maybe even more so than just the star power of the lead actor.
Precisely. It's a complex equation with many variables at play. And to make things even more interesting, Flight Risk throws another element into the mix. The return of Mel Gibson as director.
Ah, yes. Flight Risk opened this weekend, $4.4 million on Friday. Projections are putting it somewhere between $10 and $13 million for the whole weekend. Not quite Uncharted numbers, but not a complete flop either.
Yeah, it's definitely in that middle zone, making it all the more intriguing. Reviews have been mixed so far. Some critics are praising the action sequences and Wahlberg's performance, while others are finding the plot a little predictable. It'll be really interesting to see how word of mouth and audience reactions ultimately shape its box office journey.
Right, we're definitely seeing this pattern of unpredictable outcomes, and Flight Risk seems to be continuing that trend. What are your thoughts on Mel Gibson's involvement? Do you think that will significantly impact the film's performance?
Mel Gibson is a fascinating figure in Hollywood. He's a talented filmmaker with a very dedicated fan base, but he also carries some baggage from past controversies. This makes his involvement kind of a wild card. Will his presence attract audiences, or will it deter some viewers?
Right, so will it be a positive or a negative? I guess that's what we're trying to figure out. I can see arguments on both sides. It definitely adds another layer of complexity to the flight risk equation.
Absolutely, and this is what makes analyzing box office performance so fascinating. There are so many factors at play, both quantifiable and intangible. It's a constant puzzle waiting to be solved.
And with flight risk, we're just beginning to see the pieces of that puzzle come together. We have a film with a known star, a seasoned director returning after some time away from the limelight, and a genre that consistently draws audiences.
Yeah, it's a potent combination, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. Will flight risk soar to new heights, or will it become, well, a flight risk at the box office?
Now that's the million-dollar question. I guess we'll have to keep a close eye on the numbers and see how it all unfolds.
And you know what? The answer to that question might reveal more than just the success of this one film. It could give us insights into the evolving tastes of audiences, the staying power of certain genres, and perhaps even offer a glimpse into the future of Hollywood itself.
That's a lot to consider, but I am ready to dive deeper. This is where things start to get really interesting.
Let's do it. What's fascinating to me is that Mark Wahlberg's career kind of offers this unique window into the shifting landscape of Hollywood. It's not just about like these individual film successes or flops, but about how audience tastes and genre trends and the power of established stars like all intertwine.
Yeah, it's really like we're seeing this microcosm of these larger forces that play out in the industry, and it's all through the lens of this one actor's career.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that box office performance isn't solely about a film's inherent quality. Marketing strategies, release timing, even critical reception all contribute to the final outcome.
Right, it's easy to forget about all those moving parts that go into making a movie a success. We often only see the finished product, not all that strategizing behind the scenes.
Yeah, think of it like this intricate dance with studios trying to anticipate audience preferences and position their films for maximum impact, and sometimes those strategies work brilliantly, and other times they fall short.
Speaking of falling short, let's go back to those films that didn't quite light up the box office. We talked about genre and target audience, but what about the role of critical reception? Do reviews actually sway moviegoers?
That's a really complex question, and the answer likely varies from film to film. In some cases, a wave of positive reviews can generate buzz and create this must-see appeal. But in other cases, especially within specific genres, audience word of mouth can override negative critical reception.
That makes me think of Instant Family. It wasn't a critical darling, but it clearly resonated with families and kind of found its audience through word of mouth.
Yeah, that's a great example of how audience taste can sometimes diverge from critical consensus. And it highlights the importance of understanding your target demographics. Studios spend a lot of time and resources trying to pinpoint, who a film will appeal to, and then tailor their marketing accordingly.
Sounds like a high-stakes guessing game, especially when you consider the millions of dollars at stake.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of risk involved. But studios use a combination of data analysis, market research, and good old-fashioned intuition to make informed decisions. They'll analyze trends, look at historical data, and try to gauge the cultural zeitgeist to predict what audiences are craving.
But even with all that data, there's still that unpredictable human element, right? Sometimes a movie just connects with people on an emotional level, regardless of what the critics say or how it's marketed.
Absolutely. Film is a subjective experience, and what resonates with one person might not connect with another. That's what makes it such a fascinating art form and a challenging business to navigate.
Yeah, it's interesting how Mark Wahlberg's career spans this entire spectrum. From smaller, critically acclaimed films to blockbuster action franchises. He's proven his versatility time and again.
He has, and I think versatility is a key factor in his enduring appeal. He's not afraid to take risks, try different genres, and even poke fun at his own image. This keeps his work fresh and allows him to connect with a wider range of viewers.
Yeah, we've seen him in comedies like Ted, gritty dramas like The Fighter, and of course action-packed spectacles like Transformers and Uncharted. He really does defy easy categorization.
And that's a smart strategy in an industry that constantly craves novelty and reinvention. Wahlberg has managed to stay relevant by keeping audiences guessing and avoiding the trap of being typecast.
Speaking of staying relevant, let's circle back to flight risk. We touched upon its opening weekend projections, but what about its long-term box office potential? Do you think it has the legs to be a sustained hit?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? A lot depends on those factors that we discussed earlier. Word-of-mouth competition and how well it resonates with its target audience.
I'm curious about the international market as well. We know some films do incredibly well domestically but then explode overseas. Do you think flight risk has that kind of global appeal?
Yeah, you've hit upon a crucial point. The international market has become increasingly important for Hollywood, and a film's success or failure abroad can significantly impact its overall profitability. Action thrillers like Flight Risk often translate well to international audiences because they rely on visual spectacle and universal themes that kind of transcend cultural boundaries.
So we have the domestic numbers to watch the international potential. Critical response, audience buzz. It seems like Flight Risk is a film with a lot of variables at play.
It certainly is, and this brings us back to what makes box office analysis so intriguing. It's not just about the numbers themselves, but about what those numbers reveal, about the complex relationship between filmmakers and audiences, and the ever-changing landscape of the entertainment industry.
It's a reminder that behind every dollar sign, there's a story being told, a creative vision being realized, and a connection being made with viewers around the world.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to think about, all those elements that kind of converge to determine a film's success. It's like this intricate dance between the creative vision and the marketing savvy and the audience reception.
It is, and what's particularly interesting about Mark Wahlberg is that he's been a part of that dance for decades now. He's navigated the shifting tides of Hollywood, reinvented himself along the way.
He hasn't been afraid to take risks, has he? I mean, think about it. He began as a rapper, then transitioned into acting, and has starred in everything from raunchy comedies to gritty crime dramas to big-budget action films.
Right, he's never allowed himself to be pigeonholed, and I think that's a testament to his intelligence as an actor and a businessman. He understands the importance of versatility and keeping his audience engaged. And it's not just about acting right. He's also a successful producer with his own production company, and he's ventured into other businesses as well. He's really built a brand that extends far beyond the silver screen.
He has. And that entrepreneurial spirit is something we see in a lot of successful actors today. They're not just performers, they're savvy business people who understand the importance of diversifying their portfolio.
So while we wait to see how Flight Risk ultimately performs, I think it's safe to say that Mark Wahlberg's career is far from over. He's shown incredible resilience and adaptability, and I'm sure he has plenty more surprises in store for us.
I agree. He's a force to be reckoned with in Hollywood, and I'm eager to see what direction he takes next. Will he continue to embrace the action genre, or will he return to his dramatic roots? Only time will tell.
And that's part of what makes following his career so interesting. There's always that element of unpredictability, that sense that he could go in any number of directions.
Right, and that unpredictability is also what makes the film industry as a whole so captivating. It's a constantly evolving landscape shaped by creative vision, technological advancements, and of course the ever-changing tastes of the audience.
Speaking of the audience, I think it's important to remember that box office numbers are more than just a measure of financial success. They're also a reflection of our collective interests, our values, the stories we choose to embrace.
Yeah, that's a great point. Every ticket sold represents a choice, a decision to engage with a particular story, a particular world. And those choices, when viewed collectively, paint a fascinating picture of our cultural landscape.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Mark Wahlberg's box office journey, I'd like to leave our listener with this thought. The next time you watch a film, any film, take a moment to consider what drew you to it. What about the story resonated with you? What about the characters captured your imagination?
And remember, even a film that doesn't break box office records can still have a profound impact. It might spark a conversation, challenge your perspectives, or simply offer a much-needed escape from the everyday world.
Ultimately, film is a powerful medium with the ability to entertain, educate, and inspire. And Mark Wahlberg, through his diverse and ever-evolving career, has certainly left his mark on that medium.
He has indeed. And I have a feeling he'll continue to surprise and captivate us for many years to come.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. We've explored Mark Wahlberg's recent box office performance, analyzed the factors that contribute to a film's success, and considered the broader implications of audience choices.
It's been a pleasure delving into these topics with you. Hopefully our listener has gained a deeper understanding of this complex and fascinating world of Hollywood.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive has even inspired you to take a flight risk of your own and explore some uncharted territory in your own life.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.